So the UK threat level has been raised to critical, with further attacks possibly imminent. So what does this really mean when you raise the threat level to critical? And we have our security analyst, of course, with us to take us through that. This is not the first time that is happening in Britain. Of course, we remember also the subway attack that also killed a lot of Britons as well. Let's just begin with you, Dr. Apollos Machira. Looking at this particular development with now raising the threat to a critical level, what does that mean?
I don't know what that means in Britain because MI5 has been working, but my problem is this issue of terrorism. You see, this is one of the soldiers of the caliphate.
Yes.
And we have been trying to ignore the issue of Caliph Abu Bakr al-Baghdad. We have been ignoring him, thinking that he doesn't exist. And if he exists, he's moribund.
Pick up on this, or is it a new vocabulary that in the security domain you've never heard of it? The captains here can tell us.
I think, Debarl, when a country says that it's raising its security alert to the critical level, what it simply means, and you can see then there is, in addition to that, there has been deployment of the military to aid the police services. But however, they have now categorically stated that they are responsible for that. They have actually owned up that Salman Abedi is one of their soldiers, is one of their foot soldiers in Britain. And the reason why they would go to that level is if you look carefully at the news that are coming in, Salman Abedi, whose parents immigrated from Libya to Manchester, where they are a lot of Libyan immigrants, has been traveling in and out of the country. So therefore it means that the intelligence services in Britain knew, or rather the security service, immigration there is part of the security agencies. They knew that this person was moving, but they were not able, you know, sometimes if you look at movement and patterns of people and where they're going in the destination, you're perhaps able then to do tracking, even in terms of communication, to know who they are communicating to. So definitely that is an admission that at that level, the internal security services failed, and therefore you call in more firepower, and that's why they raised the threat level to critical. Yeah, because they would expect that if they were not able to detect this, how many went undetected, and how many possible attacks could happen in other cities, especially as we approach the holy month of Ramadan.
Right, thank you.
I think it depends. The issue is about the facilities, the services, the capability that you add at every level. So while other countries like Britain will call it critical because it's the topmost, other countries actually code it in colors. So that in the US, for example, if you are told it's yellow, it's green, or red, then it tells you
code red.
Code red, then that means it's critical. What does it mean? It simply says that when it's supposed to reflect on two aspects, the security agencies and the people. So that when the citizens are told we are code red, they know that this is the topmost. The danger is here, it is with us. And also the perception within the people in that country, they are made to understand that when we raise it to the critical, then it means we are in serious danger, not imminent. And therefore, what it follows is that every level of assessment goes with what is expected from the security services and what is expected from the people of that country. So that if you are told it is critical, if you are told it is, for example, code blue, then you understand what it means. The problem with Kenya, we never have those things, you see? And the essence of having those things is to prepare the citizens that when we are in blue, it means we are expecting this thing, although it's not imminent, for example. And therefore, the people of that country are taught to understand through civic education what those levels are meant to be.
And also, bearing the fact that we're actually heading to Ramadan, don't you see there's a coincidence there? Ramadan is very close, and then there are these attacks which are happening in London. We don't know what they're preparing next.
It is true, yeah. It is true, Debarl, yeah. It is for the purpose of reassuring the public, and that works because terror is here in the mind, and it is to sensitize the public. Now the thing with, yes, during the holy month of Ramadan, this is the time that many of these savages want to carry out the attacks. And if you look at the statistics and trends, it is just before Ramadan and during the holy month of Ramadan that groups like ISIS, Al-Shabaab conduct attacks.
All right, so Werunga seems to disagree with you. We'll come to you, Professor, in a moment.
I want to disagree very gently with my brother here. One, the issue of the lone wolf. I think we must debunk this myth, because this person, for you to be a lone wolf, then it means you went and bought the ingredients for the bomb yourself, you went and prepared this bomb yourself, you planned for this attack yourself, and you didn't have anybody, whether they're in Syria or whether they're in Iraq, to tell you to be part of this system. So we must debunk this issue. And even in Britain, they're still saying we are not sure, but we know as a person you must be trained to make a bomb, an improvised bomb. You don't just wake up and go to the internet and do what the fellow did, because we hear it was full of nails, it was full of bolts. So that is one thing I think we should not finish it here now. They are still investigating, and I'm sure we shall get to some point. Number two, the issue of levels is not about military and police. It's about national assessment on its own threats. And it does not matter whether it is a military threat, whether it is an internal threat. It is just about levels where a country decides we want to be preparing ourselves according to these levels. And therefore, it's part of the national security architecture. Whether it is a terrorist issue or whether it's an external threat, the country prepares itself according to those levels. And it also means that the country has decided at what level should we augment what we have on the ground. At what level should we deploy this level of security systems? Therefore, it's not about terrorism, it's not about reassuring the public. It's about how the country has decided to prepare itself in terms of internal and external threats.
That's why he's a captain, Debarl. The issue of the, let me explain something here, Debarl, the issue of the lone wolf. This is 100% lone wolf. There are 4 different types of lone wolves attack. There's the loner, there is the lone wolf, there is the lone attacker, and the lone wolf pack. Now, when we say a lone wolf, it doesn't mean that it's just one person that is going to attack. No. The lone attacker, however, is a lone person, like Abu Mutalab, who was going to, who was due to bomb the transatlantic flight. He was a lone attacker. That means that he was not known to any other terrorist amongst his ilk other than those that were in Yemen that sent him to do that kind of attack. Or the guy named Reed. That was a lone attacker, and that's one person. The lone wolf is one that works with others to assemble those explosives, and goes in as a lone wolf to go and attack. I think there's one person who has already been arrested in Manchester who was part of that lone wolf. Now, the other category is the lone wolf pack. The lone wolf pack is a subcategory of the lone wolves, and these are a group of people, terrorists, that go to attack in a pack of lone wolves. And the example is like those who came to Westgate, Garissa. These are lone wolves. That would be an example of a lone wolf pack. The loner is normally a case of a psychological, mental case, and just, like the Helter Skelter group, and some of the people who just, want to do something catastrophic that satisfies their evil desires. And herein lies the problem of the lone wolves. The CIA, intelligence agencies, security agencies have said that's the most difficult thing to actually address. And this is why one can easily, this is why Manchester has been hit, Paris has been hit, New York.
All of them. There's one aspect they are missing when it comes to assessing the threat level to critical. There is a question of deployment in civil liberties. The moment you massively deploy in the streets, for example, and in all other cities in the UK or in Kenya for that matter, what you're saying is that what are the terrorists and the lone wolves exploiting? They're exploiting the high degree of civil liberties in those countries, the ability to move around undetected and unhindered. And this is basically what the country is saying, that the moment we deploy this at this level, then you're going to be prevented from accessing to certain points. I've happened to be in a foreign capital during an attack of that nature. And the moment then you see, like, they deploy the forces that are superior, slightly above the police service, then there is a bit of restriction in terms of movement. There is a bit of restriction into the areas you can access. And there are a lot more questions. And that becomes critical, so that part of the reason why Europe is now getting attacked is simply because these these people who came in as immigrants and refugees have grown up there. They found a society that is very free, a society that has its own way of doing things and culture, and they've simply exploited that. And therefore, part of the assessment of saying it is critical also means that we're going to affect a bit of civil liberties in the country.
All right, Professor Noah Midamba.
Debarl agree with both Captain Werunga and Mustafa. Captain Werunga really gave a very clear and elaborate reason why here in Kenya we need to be able to have a different level of alert, and it is really vital. I know we are very sensitive about the British alert, the American alert, and all that because of tourism and everything. But these are the really clear indication to the citizen that we have an imminent threat. And the citizen need to be ready. The armed forces at all levels need to be ready. There is one aspect of what's going on that my colleagues here are missing. And that is ISIS are about to be defeated in both Iraq and Syria. Some of these people came from Britain, some of them came from France, some of them came from other countries. The issues they're fighting about is not over. These are well-trained, ready-made, and some of the most dangerous people you can get. They're finding their ways back into these countries, and one way or another, they will find their ways back in Africa. And so they're acting, whether the issue of a lone wolf, Mustafa explained it very clearly. You can take a car and mow down everybody who are on the side. These are easily, you can run into children, kindergarten room and kill everybody. This can be done very easily. So they're looking for soft targets, and they're sending messages at different times. The world must be ready right now.
It's barely 2 months since we had also that particular attack where a policeman was stabbed just at the bridge of Thames River. So where did the lapse come through? Because we've had some of the witnesses say some of the bags were not really checked, you know. Could it be that, first of all, the lone wolf, because we're seeing a very different way of the terrorist attack, they're taking new angles, they're taking new strategies as well, where we are having a sort of a low impact or a low scale sort of attack, but a high impact, like what we saw in Manchester Arena. First of all, do these parameters that we put in place really work? When we go to the supermarkets, people frisk you, but you know, you just barely pass, sometimes even with a belt, you know, do they really work? Because some of these people are human. You can find they're standing in the supermarket the whole day without shifts. There's bound to be, at some point, some lapses, and this is what really happened with the Manchester. So the measures that we put in place and the sort of attack that we have currently, they're using trucks. We have lone wolves. It is not the high impact or the sort of a high scale, high impact that we used to see with the bombings of the Twin Towers or the bombing of American Embassy here in Nairobi as well.
From yesterday, maybe you have seen a lot of surveillance at the airports as you enter Heathrow or Gatwick, even Jomo Kenyatta, because we have suddenly remembered that there is this animal called terrorism. So the whole world now is completely alert. But then we'll go 2 weeks, and then we start relaxing. Inspector Boynet has just reminded us that this is the holy month of Ramadan, and we should be alert. I don't know why these Muslims kill people during the holy month. They must be, either they are satanic or demons, because why the holy month of Ramadan we get scared? It is Muslims killing Muslims. It is Muslims killing Christians. Where are the imams and the sheikhs to pray, if they really pray? Because I hate the whole month because we shall start getting in trouble. If you go to Jomo Kenyatta now,
yes,
you will see it is high alert. What Captain Wanderi is saying, critical. Critical for 1 week, then we forget and work as usual. Even as you go to Nakumatia, you will find those soldiers trying to frisk you with some things that make noise, which I don't think are really...
the metal detectors.
Yeah, they don't work.
No.
I have seen some security officers entering with their pistols and, you know, they just go. So I have been wondering what these gadgets do, including here, down at the Nation Center as I enter. So I am so skeptical.
Ours is really heightened. We can vote even now. You cannot embarrass us like on our national television.
I need to educate Apollos here, Dr. Apollos Machira here. During the holy month of Ramadan, the number of virgins that you are promised increases.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is why at that point, if you are promised 72 virgins,
yes,
and you have an attack on the kafirs and unbelievers, then you get 144 virgins. And therefore, obviously, you can see this kind of ideology is very easy to sell.
What do you do with those 144?
But
well, it depends on whether
you cannot manage one or two.
But let's talk about the issue, because all we're hearing here is about the issue of ideology. Yes. Because also when you talk about the 42 virgins, the 72 virgins, yes, right? Not the 42, 72, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? I am given to understand even that was a misconception from the Quran. Right? Because it's not even the virgins as is put in the Quran. It was the raisins, not the virgins. Yes. Is that right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about 72 virgins, because this is the holy month of Ramadan, you have to be very pious and holy, holy, and now you want to go to heaven and have the 72 virgins. Yeah. Will that be a shocker when you get to heaven and you find it is not virgins but raisins that we normally eat in our bread?
Debarl, sorry.
Mustafa, I wanted to say something.
No, I think Mustafa should answer this.
Before he answers that one,
yes,
I think I wanted to say this. Let's not lose focus on what we are trying to say here.
Yes.
Because the issue is about threat levels and why countries have determined how they want to deal with threats outside and within. And therefore, as a country, I think Kenya, we need to be looking at what others are doing and determine what we need to do. While all these things we've said here, some of them could be nomenclature in terms of terminology, but I think at the end of the day, as a team, we need to discuss, because Kenyans are listening.
Yes.
And they really want to understand what are these things that we don't have, yet other countries have. And therefore, if we can delve deeper into those issues of threat levels, he has mentioned about the lone wolves, that is the subject to discussion. He has mentioned about the criticality of what it means, and we therefore diminished rights and freedom of the people. I think at the end of the day, as a country, we need to look at what others are doing and determine what befits this country. And therefore, even as we talk about virgins, I think let's concentrate on what Kenyans might want to understand, yes, out of what is happening in Britain, why they have codes, why they have threat levels, and therefore as a country, why is it that we don't have these things? Because I think our discussion is also to see where Kenya is not doing right, where the region is not doing right, and therefore talk to Kenyans and make them understand. On the issue of ideology, I don't want to disagree with Mustafa. Yes. I know he's called Mustafa, that's why he's Mustafa. But the issue is, when you do studies of terrorism and whatever, radicalisation, there are many things that pull a person to become a terrorist, right, or to be part of violence, extreme violence. There are many things that pull persons. And it's not necessarily the ideology. There are many things we are told, yes, that can make somebody to be a terrorist. But I think all said and done, we need to understand why it is being done that way in Europe and why it is not being done in some parts of Kenya, in parts of Africa, and Kenya in particular. Because this, my understanding, and I stand corrected, is the moment a country designates those levels, then the people of that country are made to understand what those levels mean. And therefore, even all security agencies that are part and parcel of that nation also understand what it means. When we are told this country has declared we are level yellow, for example, when a chief is killed in Mandera, that's a government officer. We don't seem to care. The only thing we talk about is he was a good chief and he was part of us, but that is a government officer being killed. Do you get the point?
Yes.
So it is very critical that these things about levels and criticalities and whatever needs to be ingrained in our system, so that Kenya, because we have been the most heat in this region, people should understand, so that we don't take these things in a laissez-faire attitude, and yet we lose our soldiers in Somalia. We just, people talk about it, we bury the government officers are killed. But if Kenyans understood that we have these levels that the country has determined, what it means and what it entails, it will make a lot of sense to Kenyans. And therefore, when we ask questions, the government will be listening, because we know what they've told us and what it means to be in that level of threat.
All right. So
let me talk about virgins and levels,
yeah.
Debarl. You know, virgins
yes.
these Al-Shabaab and ISIS, that's their way of leveling. Eh?
Yes,
And when they carry out their attacks, they manipulate the truth and tell these young people that, you know, if you kill during the holy month of Ramadan, you get more reward and probably more virgins. You know, and
so your chances are higher to go.
Yeah,
to
and
heaven.
I want to, first of all, this is fiction. There's nothing like virgins. It's raisins, as you said. You know, it's manipulated so that young people feel, oh, I'm going to get 72 virgins. And I want to ask young people who are watching this program.
Yes.
First of all, what the hell do you, what do you do with 72 virgins? Surely, really, you. And this manipulation of religion by Al-Shabaab is what has stuck in many people's mind, that you think that when you blow yourselves up and blow your vitals that you're going to get 72 virgins. That is not going to happen. And I understand Apollos' frustration when he says Muslims are killing people. I think we need to avoid these generalizations that Muslims are killing people. It's not Muslims that are killing people. We call them mujrimin. These are criminals. These are terrorists. Most of them have no bearing, spiritual or religious bearing at all. These are young people that are manipulated. When it comes to levels...
just a moment, before even you drill deeper with that, because we need clarity on that, truly, because when it is coming under the umbrella of Islam.
That's right.
Right?
That's
and we know about the Sharia law as well.
That's right.
And we know also that some of these terrorist groups, you know, they subscribe to some ideology, like the expansionist idea to actually have the caliphate, you know, worldwide, where we shall have Sharia law. So it is very important for us also to understand, how do we then draw that demarcation line between the politics of, you know, Sharia law and Islam itself, because that's where the rubber meets the road, because we don't know how to uncouple now the politics of Islam.
That's right, and that's a legitimate
the religion
question.
Of Islam.
Yeah, that's a legitimate question, and it will take us 2 hours to just discuss that bit here. But let me just summarize this in terms of the way religion has been manipulated, the religionization of politics and politicization of religion. And that's where confusion has started, particularly, or rather, that's where the core of the confusion is, particularly in most of the predominantly Muslim countries, where there is very thin line between state and religion, in Arabic, din wa dawla. Now, many young people get lost in that. And when we bring in the issue of Sharia law is practiced in some 50, 60 countries, not 50, 60 countries, about 30 to 40 countries around the world. Sharia law is not the problem. Sharia law is practiced in Saudi Arabia. In fact, Sharia law is used, has been instrumentalized to actually fight terror. Most of these young people that go around and, giving out, or rather recruiting and engaging in hateful behavior.
Yes.
These are people that are actually slaughtered, executed in public parks after Friday prayers in Saudi Arabia. And that's how Saudis deal with this kind of people. They actually execute them. The problem is not religion. The problem is the religious people. It's the people that have manipulated religion. And Islam, or rather terrorism, is not just it's not just Islam that is the religion that is motivating many young people. If we look at the history of terrorism, from the zealots to assassins to the Haganah, Lehi, Irgun, the Crusaders,
as well.
all through, including colonization that happened, the apartheid guys who were terrorizing blacks in South Africa, and others that were calling Mau Mau terrorists, while they themselves were the ones that were terrorizing Kenyans. Terrorism is not something that is simply or in a conflated manner associated with Islam alone. The issue of levels, I did not say that we should not have. I think we need to have those levels. It's very important to have those levels that are raised and is informed by intelligence. For me, it is pointless to have levels and put it to critical when an attack has happened. I'd like to see that level critical before an attack happens. I know Captain Wanderi will disagree with me.
Disagreeing with this, yes, because maybe you will send bugbears and fears to the public.
That's right. Because terrorism is in the mind, is scaring people, and ISIS is very happy when Britain puts out whole battalions into the streets, because that's exactly what they want to create.
But we need to agree this, Debarl. One thing is that, unfortunately, where Mustafa is getting to is a situation where when a community is attacked, then it shows inability to react or to do something. There is no society and there is no community, no country can behave that way. Why? Because terrorists only need to get it right once. But security forces must get it right every time, always, every minute, every hour, every day. And that is a situation that is persisting in the entire world in terms of combating these people. Who are we dealing with? ISIS is not a conventional army. It's not even what you'd call... I had a professor say they are well trained. They are not trained. A properly trained soldier, my colleague Captain Werunga will tell you, does not celebrate the death of civilians. No. A well-trained soldier knows that he is facing enemy combatants who are trained per scale like him or herself. And therefore, they will celebrate when they have exterminated. And the word here is exterminated an enemy combatant. But an irregular, a terrorist, a bandit, a criminal, and any outlaw will celebrate the death of civilians. And this is the kind of problem that we are confronting. People who do not, in fact, they are rebels without a cause. Because if you ask ISIL what their cause is, it is irrelevant. And I want to get what Mustafa is saying, that when you mix religion and state, the theocracy, during the times he's mentioned, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Saladins, one of the things that was critical in all those places, and even during the Ottoman rule, the Ottoman Empire, is a question of combining state and religion and making religion supersede the rights of the people. And it's as if religion then becomes the way of life. You can see Turkey, the president of Turkey, working very hard to oppose that kind of system in his country. And remember, he was facing a coup the other day, which he says was instigated by extremists. And then we must finally name something which we all avoid and talk of ideology. We have had the Sunni Muslims, okay? And we have the sect of the Wahhabism. Among the Sunnis, which is a small sect, it is the one that propagates this extreme ideology. And as a matter of fact, you ask that question, do they propagate Sharia law? Per se, I will agree, Sharia law does not talk of killing Christians. But the narrow interpretation of Islam by the Wahhabi sect, in fact, calls for extermination of other nationalities and other peoples, non-believers. And that is where the problem is. And once if we keep going around and not mentioning it, and not challenging the Muslim leaders who are moderate to condemn that, then we will go nowhere.
Right. Briefly, we hear from Professor. Then we also want to focus on where Donald Trump was in Saudi Arabia, where we have the Wahhabis as well. And did he also deviate from some of his stand, some of his stand pronouncement during the electioneering period, before the general election in the US? Very briefly, Professor.
Very quickly, I want to correct the Captain Wanderi point. And I agree with you, Captain. largely most of the foot soldiers in ISIS are ordinary people or kids who are confused.
Yes.
But there are evidence, very clear evidence of ex-soldiers in America, in UK, in France, in most other countries that have joined this force. These are experts, these are well-trained folks who are leading the whole force. Some of these people coming back are some of the most dangerous people. So we have to be ready, committed to deter these people. And another point, we cannot emphasize enough that we need level of alertness in this country. It is very important, the point that Captain Werunga was saying, and I've been talking about it for a while. Captain Werunga has been talking about this for a while. It does not matter. We need to bring the country together. We need the ordinary citizen to understand what is amber alert, what is red alert. We can use any other color. We don't have to use the Homeland Security, the US security. Israel has levels of alert. Now, the gadget we are using are miserable. And you know, I mean, we want to hire more people to do security, that's fine. But you know, they're not detecting anything. You know, because if you are in Israel right now, you will not see any security person. Yeah. But you're being watched, and they analyze every single information out of every vehicle traveling on the road, out of person moving in and everything. But you won't see anybody or any person with a gun which is checking you.
Thank you.
That is the level we need to reach.
Thank you. All right.